it's a space we've got, but so one of the things I'd like to talk about is our role as leaders and some of the, I suppose the opportunities we have to take what we've heard today about, particularly from Catherine, about what we know and what we don't know about smart and skilled, and we know the world around us, and the opportunity to build on the things I was talking about change, and we're going through lots of change, and there's no doubt about that. Anthony's presentation is about, if we don't do some things differently, if we keep the same as way, they're going to get the same result. And the results at the moment in some areas are not very good. And our competitors, which includes universities, to a large degree in our diploma areas, are getting the better deals. And if you look at some of the spaces of our competitors, they've got much more money, Anthony, for sure. They've got bucket loads of money. But one of the things that what we're trying to do is that we have got a bit of money that we're trying to invest this year, and we have struck resistance in some of the innovation that we're trying to push out there. And I know Deborah's pushing and Marianne about, we've got to put things together. We've got to have multi-use spaces. We've got to challenge our pedagogy of how we teach and learn. So it's not always about the college, it's nearly always about the teacher. And we're running into barriers there as well. So it's a process. But what I'm more interested in this hour is, these things are on our agenda, and you're not going to do it all instantly. I'm more interested perhaps having a discussion about how we can work together, and that's what I'm talking about, what I'm striking in a couple of feedback sessions I've had. When the Minister came out to Granville a couple of weeks ago, who was in the room then? Valerie was, Shane was, Deborah, Rabia. Got a lot of, Marianne, a Minister came out and talked to 15, 20 of our staff, and we had a bit of I took the opportunity to have a bit of a session about, well, what can we do? We're going through lots of change. And a lot of the feedback was, we've got to do more as an organisation, we've got to support people are fragile and all that. And when we started digging in a little bit more, we found that perhaps we're not all on the same page, because we all go out of our institute, out of our, when we get in this room, we're all fired up. And then we go back to our space and it's the end of the world story, rather than the leadership story. I think we have to be honest about that. That's what I was hearing, that we're doing heaps here. Now we can do more, but we can do better, and there's no doubt about that. So I'd like to hear that, but also like to have techniques about how you could be involved if you need support on this, in some of the change leadership. Now I know that's difficult because you're going through it yourself, so it's kind of wearing two hats. I know it's not easy, but I think we've got to put it on the table. I think we've got to put it on the table as a group about how do we address these issues. The positive side of it is we are trying to do some of this stuff that Anthony's talking about in pockets and learn from it. We're also going to be upfront about that has to be changed. That you can't do this unless you consolidate into spaces that are consolidated. So some buildings are going to be closed. We're just going to lock them up. Even campuses in the next couple of years could get locked up, and we consolidate. Now I'm talking to Terry and Thor about automotive sections. Basically we're just trying to push them all into Wetherill Park, into a new facility that we built in 2015. But everyone wants to have their own centre as the centre. Business studies is consolidating. It's all working, isn't it? You're starting to push things together. Other groups are consolidating. We pushed plumbing out of Chullora and we pushed it into Miller and Granville into much better learning facilities, better for the students. Now, that's painful, but critical mass is important to us, and then doing this sort of stuff. Deborah's going to be going out next week talking about a new model of the way that we manage and deliver our non-teaching services, all our student support, our customer engagement. Because unless we get that right, unless we get the engagement right, we're in deep, deep trouble, Not only because of the resources, it's because we've got to provide the services in this demographic. So I'm going to stop talking and let's have a discussion about what we do. But before I do that, I'm really interested just to talk to Brian, get Brian to talk to us quickly about what happened this week. I think you had something with your team about change, which we could all learn from.
Thanks, Peter. I guess my story is more about people than the big changes that are happening. We all recognise that that's occurring. But last Monday week, I had a head teacher come to my office and very stressed and overpowered with it all. And I said to her, look, go sick. You've got to go off sick. You're so... She was right on the edge. And the following morning at the senior staff meeting, I fired up a little bit. And I raised the issue of what's the Institute doing to support people. You know, we're going through all the process of pushing changes down. And my comment, to be quite blunt, was we hear all the bad news stories when we go to meetings. We hear about what we've got to do to change, but we're not hearing anything about what's the Institute going to do to support the people. I impressed at that meeting how the changes affect every one of us. There was not one member of the staff at that meeting that wasn't affected. And we had a bit of a bitch session for about 20 minutes or so. And then I always do at each of the senior staff meetings, ask each faculty where they stand at the moment, and we got all those reports. But at the end of the meeting, my facilities coordinator said, you know, Brian, they all walked out of that meeting, they were laughing because we went through that process with it. So I decided that what we'd try and do was bring everyone in the college together as best we could. And I had a function last Tuesday night, and I called it You Are Not Alone. And basically that was I had 60 people turned up, which amazed me, at 4:30 in the afternoon. A lot of them had finished work for the day, but they stayed back to come to this. And it was just a social function. It was just cheese and bickies and a chat. And I only spent about 3 or 4 minutes talking to them and said basically what I said a moment ago. Everyone in the organisation is faced with these changes. We can't avoid the changes coming, and they're not. We shouldn't be blaming SWSi, we shouldn't be blaming TAFE. They're all external forces coming at us. And not only is it the state government asking us to cut our budget, but we've got the federal government then bringing down the vet changes, which includes smart and skilled from the state. So we're all affected by that, and we can't avoid it. So we had a great afternoon. But the interesting point was, I invited HR to come along because they're in the office next to us. They didn't come. And the backwash was, we didn't come because we're the people that deliver the bad news. And I said to them, hang on, they're all colleagues of ours. Everyone in the Institute is one of our colleagues. We've all got a role to play. Each one of us at some point will probably have to deliver some bad news and probably get some ourselves. So it was basically, we're all in the same boat, we're all moving in the same direction, and we've got to do the best that we can as we move through it. And basically supporting one another as a college. And that was the way I put it from the college. So it worked well. People went away, and the number of people that I had approached me after by email and verbally saying thanks, that was really great. That relieved a lot of pressures, was great. So it worked well, and it was a really good event. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Brian.
I hope at your pitching session you did talk about the positives the Institute is doing for staff.
I do the positives for staff.
No, the Institute.
I think what happens is that the bitching sessions from leaders without I think Brian was reflected on his conscience probably, if I'm going to read something into it, and said, well, okay, we've had a big bitching session, I'm the leader of the college and I've led it, and I'll blame the Institute. And then the next reaction to that I'm going to paraphrase, say I'm going to have a get together and take ownership of, and I've got to do something in the college to support people getting together because, we could do a lot more. There's always endless things we do. And if you talk about our HR people, I mean, Sharon and Alan and James and, everyone, they've got to go to every of these meetings. And a lot of the issues involving faculties are doing the bad messages as well. They're going through that. Now we're into customer engagement. Leadership, across the room is, supporting each other as well and not blaming. And so I'd like just to open up about how we can improve. Let's just focus on the ways we can actually, support each other, pick up on some of the positive messages that are happening. We're trying to get better communication. I think that's a big issue. So we're trying to get some standardised messages, and we've got a company in to help us with some of the things that you could use, like the standard approach to messaging, and we've got a workshop on that. A couple of weeks I'm going to roll some stuff out and then do some extra capability building across our organisation, because the words are really important, not only what you write and what you're in the emails, but what you say. If you stick the message, it helps, because you say, and sometimes the messages are so confusing, like you're not in your head, Joy. So let's put our hands up. We've got 25 minutes. We can stay a bit longer if we need to, just to think about, have some comment about, reflections on moving forward, because there's a lot going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months that we've got to stick together on this, and then your influences of a lot of other people about how to deal with this, and we've got to learn. So. Who wants to go first? Hey, Lyndon, there you go, right up the back.
This is not necessarily a positive, but it also means our support units have to come along with us on the ride. We're trying to get our courses customised, up quickly and out there as fast as we can, and then we come across other areas, other units that say, no, you can't do that, you've got to do this, you've got to wait for that. So we've got to bring those along as well, Peter, and that is hamstringing us a bit. So it's important that we recognise that and actually get that message out there as well.
So I think the issue is that priorities or one thing, because people are, that it's not as an area, not people perhaps not a focus, they mightn't understand the pressures. And then we have, and I think that we've got to look at our processes. One of the clear messages that I got a couple of years ago was process reform, that we've got to come leaner. We've got too many people having to do approvals. We've got too many people mixing into the business, between the customer and the outcome. We've got to get rid of it all. We started all that lean stuff. Remember, we started Six Sigma and all that when I fell in a heap because it was too complicated, and poor Charlene, had it on top of LMBR and everything else. So I want to reinvigorate the lean stuff, and that'll be the college and campus and customer engagement's got to do that. So we've got to put that on the table, making we're all in the same boat, and not blaming the other section, but working out a solution. So it's getting together and saying, yes, I understand what your needs are, and that's open and honest conversations in the right forums. We've got to have them between the different groups. So anything else?
I've had the opportunity to be going to UNSW the last few years, and one of the things that they have there is attached near to the library area is a tech support person, and any student who goes in who's lost their password, can't connect in, has got problems with their BYO device or whatever, there's tech support there that's from early in the morning till about 6:30 in the evening, and they're on the phones that weekend too. So it's just a fantastic support, and it means that you're not delaying the teacher or the class or anything if you happen to have problems with your devices.
Thanks. Thank you.
As well, and Ron is already. That's right, and Ron at that time was in the room when this was brought up at the Macfield session, and he explained that very morning he actually had a meeting with his staff, and he's bringing about changes in terms of their timetable, so they can actually work flexible hours, just like the libraries, so that they can be extended for our customers and our internal customers as well as external. Yeah.
So that's like Saturday mornings.
Yep, and I think we've got to think of the tech support along the span. The issue for us at the moment, we're too spread out. So if we're going to do it everywhere, we haven't got enough people. But if we start and consolidate it, and that's what we're going to be talking about, we're going to put on the table, we've got to start consolidating our service into hubs. And that's where we can put people in, because we can afford to maximise the utilisation. At the moment, we're spread out all over the place. So and it's an important point, support, keeping the students is critical.
I think one of the issues, and we've had a number of conversations working with Carol, is Carol and I are looking at a strategy about opening. I have 5 sections here now, and Saturday is really important to a lot of our people coming in to be able to do their studies. And also we have a commercial hairdressing area which we want to open for commercial delivery on a Saturday. There's a number of issues which Carol and I, we've sat down and looked at some of the things to do with security, and we're working through how we manage that. But to me, for my business and to grow my business, I need to have the college open on Saturdays. I need to have a commitment by my 5 sections that they will start to deliver it. We're putting in a project plan to you. Carol and I are developing that together to open up here on Saturdays for that commercial delivery, but also to offer our diploma courses, vet fee help, people coming in, doing fast track, getting through it quicker, having a drop in, drop out if they can't come in during the week. So that, to me, we would like to commence, we are going to commence that in semester 2, but again, you've got the issues that we have to contend with. We want to have the whole lot open because in the past it's just been one area, J Block, which is animal care and a few others, but we've got aged care now that needs to have the facilities. We've got the hairdressing that needs to open. It's the cost and the implications, and the cost to me comes from the commercial delivery to employ the security. So again, they're the things that I think that we would like to start. We are looking at, we are putting in a project, we are identifying what the needs are, how our business will grow and how we're changing now, which means our full-time teachers have also said they'd rather work on the Saturday and not during the week, and they'd like to have an extra day. So the whole idea of how we deliver now, just at a 48-week, how many weeks they deliver, is now going to go right through to the 50, but the Saturdays have to be part of it.
Absolutely. Like Saturday's just another day. We've always been open Saturday. The problem is that over here we've got colleges and over here we've got faculties. We're running a business. We're all together.
There's a cost involved.
Yeah. So, but the cost involved has got to be included in the commercial. So it's like that. That's the business. We're all together in the business, and so we've got to work out. And it's got to be critical mass. The colleges can't do it unless we have mass. And we've got to work out mass. And and you're given a mass.
Yeah, we've got the mass. Yeah, but the other issue is when we open up, our problem is you look at the issues to do with where do they get their food, where do they park, are we going to open this, are we going to open that, have we got the library access? They're the things that we'll probably have to address in 2015, but for 14, let's just get the college open on the Saturdays, let the commercial business, then we're going to have to address how this happens. Now, the second issue I want to talk about, to go back to what we discussed earlier in the first speaker, was the issue to do with group training organisations. I think it's a great way, particularly in terms of looking at our new engagement model, but also have a facility within one institute, within one college or a couple, where we do have the group training organisation and the apprenticeships. They would love it. And maybe the job skills, and have a time, an area that is specifically designed that they own, and they're working here and they're part of us. We'd have greater opportunity for business.
We've got one of the biggest group training organisations in the state at Chullora campus, Nika Group Training. It's located on rents facilities from us refurbished on Chullora campus. Deborah and Marianne are now looking at job service providers, renting premises on our campuses. We got to. I just go back to the days in the week thing. It doesn't matter which day in the week as long as it's going to be commercially viable. So you've got to have the faculty's getting together and doing critical mass. You've got to have your support services. You've got to have lunch. If you said to a contractor that you're going to provide 70 people with lunch, someone in a truck will pull up. You just got to think differently. But you got, for the colleges, they have to have enough people to justify the security and and that should be relatively easy if we all get together. Bit of an issue about silos. From a leadership point of view, the issue is about, we have one faculty will work at a particular campus, have all its classes on Thursday night. One will have all his classes on Tuesday. The other faculty will have on Wednesday. And basically we've got to keep security and canteens and everything open for 3. We pull them on one night. And so we've got to have that sort of, that's all of us together. John.
Just talking around the viability of opening hours and stuff like that, maybe what we need to do is identify specific campuses that are going to be open on Saturdays or, for extended, and get people used to travelling. And I'm not talking about the students, I'm talking about the staff. I've spent 24 years in an institute where I had to travel 275 kilometres to get to a staff meeting. So the idea or the challenges that people quote, but we couldn't teach over there, which is 12 kilometres away or whatever. In the future, business viability, we've just got to have a look at opening certain centres and putting everything in there.
And Anthony's in the room, perfect for flexible hubs, isn't it? Configured one day for one thing, configured one afternoon for another, and in locations that are strategically important for the services.
I just wanted to comment back, Peter, on you saying we're all one, you know, we're all working together. I think that we have to recognise that the support services are here only to support the faculties. The faculties are the driving end, they're our business end, our pointy end. And I think that that's why we're here, because the faculties are the people who have the students. And the quicker we get to realise that all our support services are about the student, but ultimately the delivered to those students is the faculty, that then we will all be working together.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about, you know, it's who's closest to the customer. You know, and that's we've really got to address those issues, and then what are all the elements that come to that, and where's their first point of contact? Could be the call, the telephone call, or something like that.
Thanks, Peter. I think for that reason a multidisciplinary product development team meeting needs to be happening on a regular basis, so that when we're planning products, courses, we actually think about the marketing, we think about the facilities, all of that's done not in isolation, and then the process gets driven, but the think tank is there in situ when we discuss it, so that we've all got the same outcome and vision, and therefore you know some of your processes, the barriers start to break down too, because the people that you know normally have to go through a form-based process or something can see where you're at.
So you do it right at the front.
Yes, and
So
I mean,
does that
we
happen
need to
now?
develop products
Does that
a
happen
lot
now?
earlier.
So what you're saying, so
earlier.
the teaching section gets together with ICT and learning systems and the college, and all get together and work out the, you know, work out the. Yeah, you go. No, you go. Yeah, and I'm just saying, so that doesn't happen at the moment. Like we're all doing it in our silos.
Not early enough either.
And in some areas it happens, like, so you're designing a new facility, you know, you get the college manager and you get the faculty and you get ICT services, but we're talking about just day-to-day business operations. You've got to have more collaboration. Okay, do you want to talk?
On the communication thing, from visiting, I get around and work with a lot of the staff, they all seem so downhearted. Now, if we can start doing case studies about how people have changed, and we'll shoot stuff, you know, 5-minute videos or something to start demonstrating that changes are happening rather than us just talking about it, go in there.
Positive stuff.
Absolutely. And start putting out real life cases rather than us just always talking about it and saying it's changing. Let's start putting in some in their face. We can't force them to look at them, but let's start producing some, you know, video case studies of sections or teachers who've turned around and are now looking to be more viable, and then that hopefully will encourage people that, oh look, it's happening, I can see it, there's the person, and you know, it's just an idea anyway.
I just thought of something linking with what Chris said and using, say, Carol and Chris and iTELs and all the players in your scenario of a Saturday, and having all those players working together on the, you know, which is a solution, you know, that you're all working together to provide a new form of, like we used to teach Saturdays like all the time, but the numbers went down and down and down, and that got more and more difficult, and the costs all started to be attributed. But we all own the problem. If you don't open Saturdays, we don't open 48 hours, you know, 48 weeks of the year, unless we consolidate out of all, you know, we've got too many buildings, so we've got to consolidate into the really good buildings. We could do with that. So is everyone, that's what Deborah's talking about, get up front and then start practicing this, and then take some case studies of it. Can we make that
I'm
an
sure
action?
there's already some out there.
An action? Oh, I think every college has got one.
Absolutely.
I think every faculty's got a story.
Well,
Well, just go to
It
Toby.
also goes back, I agree with Deborah. I've only been here a short time, but we seem to be very internally
Does
focused
everyone know
rather than...
Toby Creamer, the new international business manager? He's only been here, what, a couple of months?
only 4 or 5 weeks now.
4 or 5 weeks.
But we seem to be very internally focused, like looking at, you know, the internal things rather than externally focused. And coming from other, you know, private providers, they seem to be, they see this as a massive opportunity for them, whereas we see it, you know, as a hindrance.
So tell us what you think we should do, Toby. Like, be brave about it. You've come in from the private sector.
Well,
and you just said to me, like, we
I
spend
think
all
we-
our time looking internal. We don't look over the horizon what someone else.
Yeah, we really need to, I think, get together, with Deborah's point, you know, get together and work out what our customers do want, where they want to change, where they want courses, how they want to deliver it. You know, which will be different from what we actually internally think, you know, we want to give to the customer.
Actually, ask them. Sheila, there you go. Anyone else before I? I'll just. So, Sheila again.
Sorry, just a quick one. Going back to the design of the learning environments, is there any outside student learning spaces that have been developed as a result of the project? Again, my experience in another learning facility has been that they've put outside learning spaces with tables that have got outside PowerPoints so students can plug in their devices and use those environments. And I think that the college managers have been doing a great job of changing the look of our learning facilities, but I think that there's sometimes a lot of opportunity for learning spaces in the outdoor areas.
Lyndon? So John's writing notes on this, he's writing everything down so we capture all.
I'd just like to comment on an opportunity that we're working on over at Campbelltown for some minor works, changing the look of our IT and electro-technology into one centre there. And the timing and the amount of time we get to think and to plan and to look at that, but then somebody like Andrew comes in and he's the expert. Anthony, sorry. He's the expert and he should be telling us, because it's all about the furniture, it's all about the open space, and that's what we want to do, but we need help.
Absolutely, and I thought you were getting some help, but you're not. Okay, well, there's a budget for design, it's a minor works. We've requested, I'll follow that up, we need architects.
Ask him for his card before we leave.
No, he can refer us on to some architects, he's got a division that does it, but we have to have, and we've been challenging our conventional way of doing things. Deborah and I are challenging it at the moment, that we have to have some input into experts. So if you're isolated, I know Damien's going to be working more on this, now about getting some maximising the flexible space. But if we're there's people out there that don't necessarily have to be architects, do they? They can help with flexible design.
Yeah, look, I can fix up with architects. God, there's lots of architects. But I can tell you the people that are in this space. But really, honestly, where you can learn the most is through is going to have a look. Right? You learn more by going to have a look. Good point. There's a time focus in that. So I suppose if you want to get to a point where you think you can get your head around all this, you've got to devote the time to learn it. I did. I just had to sit down and try and understand it. And I spent a lot of time reading, learning, and I was even one thing about universities, they let you travel. So I went and had a look at stuff and actually took out what I saw. So I know what you need to have a look at, right? I can tell you where to go, what to look at. Just one last question. Sorry. Is if you it all looks extremely overwhelming when you look at it, as the whole. It's a very, very overwhelming thing, right? Now, universities went through it in 1989, 88. It was a very, very extremely overwhelming thing for them. Just about the shakeout was big, right? But as you can see, they've come out of it much stronger because they sort of, just like everybody goes through change, they sort of, got on and just. But what they did was, there wasn't unlimited money. They just looked at chunking it down. So they looked at pouring all their effort into changing the paradigm in bits. But the bits all had to link up, eventually. And they didn't do it as a mass. They really did it in bits. And the first thing that was ever done on QU2 was they refurbished 2 floors underground of the library on that site and turned it into what was called VLab. And at that time, which was 1992, it was just a big open space, chock-a-block full of computers. Chock-a-block. And it was just, there hadn't been one of those on QUT. And it was the most popular thing they ever did. It was full. Because kids came and used the computers because it was free. And they put a bit of furniture in there. Now it looks a lot different. But it was just 2 floors of good furniture and computer labs and computers available. And it was the most highly utilised in that space. It was full for till 10 o'clock at night. And that was just one little piece in the jigsaw. So you've only got to pick one thing to start changing the paradigm, the way kids think. Once they come, one small input and build on it.
Ron's got good ideas. Ron and Sylvia were there with that. They've got those ideas. We're working on those. So,
And I think, then just to let you know, like what Tanya's saying, right, Damien's, we're focusing on now on projects to support this, that we'll be talking a little bit more over the next week or so. We're really focusing on consolidating our resources and getting support, because sometimes you're doing everything else and then you only have this much time to think. We need some guidance, and Anthony's taking a team of people to Queensland through John, and we've already got the college managers working with Damien to try and the faculties to try and open it up a little bit in terms of getting some, innovation in there, maximum flexibility. So
I think it's just been that little chunk of time, the little window we've had, and we haven't had enough time to allow for the planning for the research.
we need a lift first.
And I know there are people
But I think what we've got to do is, we need to get, obviously time is an issue and we have to chunk down priorities, but it's working in business studies, hasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so John's helping to coordinate this. Sorry.
So that we can, like with Shane's point, visualise it so that the rest, everybody from SWSi who wants to be part of the new SWSi can see where we're going and what we're getting, and say, I want to be part of that.
So it's messages in the communication.
Yeah, that's our positive message.
That's what when Shane said that he'll do a video for us. We already had that written down.
Okay, so it's and Deborah, what we're doing is, what we're talking about here is nearly everything's about multiple touch points. It's about student support service, about faculty, about colleagues. Nothing we've been talking about here is in isolation. It can't be. So we've got to find mechanisms that, like Deborah said, is to put it international business, commercial. Unless we have all the stakeholders in the room at least talking together, we can't do one thing or another. Can't be college making this decision, can't be faculty making this decision. So Deborah?
I think my take-home message from earlier was in regard to the people change, and that is a huge aspect of any change, is the people. So that early engagement, community of practice development, and I think Brian's attempt to start that in a local site is a really good strategy. Now it needs to get some focus and energy to take it somewhere positive so that it doesn't remain just a let-off steam place, but it starts to create the future together. But we need to empower people across our faculties and across colleges, because unfortunately the way we group people is different. It's local and it's around faculty structures. But the other area I think that we need to be thinking about is can we almost come up with a replicatable model so that we're not trying to just all discover the way forward, but to have a franchise approach to this. This is the way it works best if we establish this group and we move that forward and we start to do things fairly systematically. And
that's that community of practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So we all agree with, just hand up the floor.
I was just going to say, is Damien on that team Queensland Talk? Because he's doing a lot of this.
Yeah. I thought Damien would be here. Actually, I texted him and... What's that? He's on the team, yeah. No, Damien's, he gets his head around this and we've been...
He's been advocating this.
What's that?
He's been advocating this stuff for
so
quite
he,
some time.
and replicating the model and getting we made some savings this year, significant amount of savings, like in some of the stuff. So we've got some money, not to you, but you're going to give us some more. And then we've got this Wetherill, remember I was telling you about the Wetherill Park project? I mean, Terry Saunders and Thor are the directors that manage that. We've got it's a capital works, and we've got the money for the capital works, and then they've done a design. Now we've got to get in some of this flexible design.
There's nothing more invigorating. Can I tell you now? There is nothing more invigorating than working with educators who want to achieve an outcome through design. It is the most invigorating thing that someone like me will ever do. That just doesn't mean for kids. That means for your own spaces as well. Please do not be afraid of getting out of offices, because if you really want to embrace it, there are so many clever ways to design those spaces. All the big companies around the world have already moved into this place. If there's a couple of places I could take you for a tour, which might be a bit eye-opening, but there is so much clever stuff. The spaces are just infinitely better, infinitely. But you've got to be, you've got to do it in an engaging fashion. You've got to, yeah, it's no good if it's a dictatorial type relationship. It just doesn't work.
Thou shalt work in a pod.
Yeah.
I did a tour at Adobe in Sydney. They have no desks that someone owns.
Yeah.
Every desk is open. You just pull up, and that's your desk for the day. It's incredible, and the space is awesome.
We'll just. We like some new people. We've had a few people, their hands have already been.
I just wanted to kind of feed off what was said about design, because my man is an architect, and for the first time ever in my career, he surprised me last year and turned up to work at Padstow, and I took him on a tour, and he went, "Whoa, the 80s. This is, we're really in an institution." Now, he also lectures or tutes at UTS in architecture, and he's like, "Whoa, it's really oppressive." And I think part of the thing is, like you were saying about all the students there at QUT, and I'd say some of those students that are in those spaces aren't students.
No.
They're aspiring students, they're ex-students, they're people who want to be there. They're people who want to be there, and it's that critical mass of having spaces available for students when they're not in the classroom, because I feel really grim, even just arriving here of a day. I'm walking through C Block and all the students are sitting in the corridors, and me as an adult do not want to sit on the floor in a corridor waiting for a classroom. Where are the spaces that our students can meet and cluster, not in the canteen but other places and study that's not the library, that's comfortable, that they actually go, yeah, I'd rather be at TAFE early, I'd rather be at TAFE between classes, after class, on my day off, to congregate, to discuss, that they feel welcome here and there are facilities for them that aren't locked up, that, you know, and it is about that community. That's why that was so good about my university experience, was everything else that happened in the campus, that you will have that critical mass that the students feel as though we want them here.
Jeff?
Thank you. I just reflect on two things that actually happened yesterday. One's a positive and one not so good, but anyway. Over time I've done a bit of work on and off at university in specialist areas, bit of tutes, and previous times I've usually have about 20 to 30 students, and usually I have them in a 130 seat lecture theatre, and it doesn't work. This time the university's put me in not quite a space as good as what is at QUT, but a space where there's round tables, they fill the room, it's about a third the size of this, and this is only the second week, but it's working heaps better. So we've got to look at some of that, look at some of the dynamics. The other thing that happened yesterday, we were at a meeting with teachers, and you know, on a less than positive note, and we've all got to take responsibility for it, we're still having difficulty getting the message across about smart and skilled. So we need some techniques, we need the stuff that Catherine's done this morning is really good, it's succinct, it puts it, we've still got people saying it's not going to happen because there's going to be a state election. What amount of money are we going to get guaranteed to deliver? And when I said none, they all went, what are you saying? You know, so I think we've still got to do some work there, and the stuff we've done around Nick's leadership and some of the communication stuff's got to benefit us, but we've still got work to do there.
It's a good point, Jeff. We focus a lot on the facility side of it, and I mean, there's no doubt that we have to do something with our spaces to make them welcoming, and you know, we'll do that. But also the communication, we know that we've got to have messages more clearly and better and focused and honest and transparent, but with some information. The problem is that we haven't got a real lot. But you know, we're going to work on that. Thank you.
Probably just carrying on from that, denial is one of the words that you're talking about. Another one's fear, uncertainty, people feeling threatened, and they all behave in particular ways when they're placed in that position. I'm in a fairly unique position of being a faculty director for 5 years and then coming into the Associate Institute Director role in an acting capacity and working very closely with the support units. Any organisation has people that are negative, and every organisation has people who are troublesome. But I would suggest to you that SWSi is an organisation that the vast majority of people are absolutely brilliant at what they do and they're committed to the organisation. So I just want to make one observation. I haven't met anybody who I would call professional in I must say that I haven't met anybody in SWSi that has any spare time, which is a factor. If everybody's working really hard, then your emotional capacity and your relationships are always tested. I haven't met anybody in SWSi, whether it be in a faculty or a support unit, who's maliciously saying it's their fault or, you know, they're stopping me from doing the job. The reality is what I've seen is really high quality people, all really committed to students and to our outcomes and to our viability into the future. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is that if you do have a frustration, if you do think, hang on a minute, I've been treated unfairly and, you know, that's the problem, they're the reason why I'm not able to do my job or why it's impacting on me, don't let it go. Go and have a conversation. Go and talk to people. Because I've got, as I said, a fairly unique viewpoint, and I haven't found any bad people in the place. And I haven't found any people who are trying to actually undermine others. So yeah, have the conversation and really get to talk.
Thanks, John. Terry.
Yeah, look, I had a similar thing with Brian. I had all my head teachers the other afternoon, and it's great. John's right, have a conversation, they feel good. And I can appreciate, you know, the ideas that we're going to showcase good stories. But I think the biggest bit of feedback I'm getting back from my people, because we've done the easy things in certain ways. I mean, we've been through a lot of pain and anger, and people have lost jobs, and we've made efficiencies. But that's easy in relative terms, because the next part gets really hard. And I think what my people really need to see right now, and this comes from our level, the board, they want to see some decisions that actually show them tangible change that enables these changes we're asking to continue with, because they've made a lot of changes, they still have to go a lot further. But one of the big things is that, you know, I think sooner or later we're just going to run out of room unless they can actually see what's the organization done to enable me to continue on and with these changes. Because I take John's point, we've got a really bunch of good people in our organization, but we come back to that old chestnut, you know, it's ludicrous to ask them to continue to do the same things and we're going to get a different result. No, we actually have to change. We've got to enable them. So just before I go and leave, that's my thought.
What those changes need to be.
Oh, well, sure. I'm never short of a word, but some of, well, one of the issues that and of course it strikes me, we had a bit of a conversation. And some of us are pretty old. We can go back to the days when we used to hand print the enrollment forms. And we used to think it was terrible because enrollment would take 90 minutes. We're 6-7 weeks into the situation, and I still don't have people enrolled. So I think, and I mean, we kind of, maybe it's harsh, but we've got to abandon the cargo cult mentality around Psalm and LMBR. You know, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and we're still waiting. And I think we really got to start looking hard at these systems that are, you know, we're working so hard to work around them because they don't work. They don't suit our business. What happens if we just simply, we stop? We just throw it away. Do something. I guess that's probably the basic message. We've got so much process and we're not getting the outcomes. So I just think there's things like that we've got to look at. We really got to look at, you know, internally, and I won't apologize for that, but what do we do to enable our teachers to continue to change, to continue to be successful?
Yeah, thank you. I got a very, very good email from a head teacher after we put out the operating principles, you know, the guideline principles. That said, if only, you know, all the sentiments are right, but we've got too much bureaucracy, got too many stopping me getting on with my job, we've got too many things that have to be checked by other people. Unless you can cut all that out, and I think he was from your faculty, that we're just getting bogged down in the total opposite to what you're asking us to do. And I think that we've got to reflect on that, whether it's shotting out everything that we do now or just taking out all the stuff that doesn't have to be done, that we've got too many checks in the system that maybe are not necessary. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of heads nodding that we have to do something different.
Between the CHAPS and THPA merge, we've just been through a fairly significant change management process ourselves, and one of the things that we've implemented as the new faculty is to allow a forum during our head teacher meetings, which are fortnightly, for the teachers to share an innovation or an idea from their section that's working really well. Just at a very grassroots level, it gives the teachers a chance to learn from each other about things that they may not have known was happening, but it also gives those head teachers a sense of value in what they're doing is shared. And at a broader scale, we're able to take some of those and give them to marketing when it comes to sharing those ideas, so that some of them may be taken on much wider. Some of the sections are doing some really innovative things, but it's like we've reflected on today, they're happening in pockets. So just to open it up through our faculty, we've started that forum.
Okay. No, Jane? No.
Yeah, I'm happy to contribute. I think people have all said that there's some really innovative chunks, and I know Deborah's raised the point about multidisciplinary teams, and probably just one short mention that I think there is a good example of a multidisciplinary team around higher ed in the Institute, and that's a good example of both support units and faculty influence in a committee that is switching from a faculty-based approach to higher ed to a whole of institute approach. We haven't got it perfect by any means, but I think having those people in the room and starting to redirect our higher ed policy, particularly in terms of the international market. So I guess I'm saying there's things that we can share across the Institute about areas that are working well, and that's just one example that I'm involved in.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, hello, I'm Linda Watts, the new Work Health and Safety Manager, one of those anal people. Look, I just wanted to, if I could, just lead into something that Brian said. Look, at the very pointy end, while you're going through this change, and it will be long in duration, I get that, if you do have people come into your office who are distressed and you are sending them home, please report them to me, because I'm obliged, as Peter is to apply policy in regards to that support. I can't help people if I don't know that the change has made them now significantly unwell. So if you can just remember, if you have those conversations, that they come through to the Work Health and Safety Unit. Thank you.
That'd be the 1-800 number, people.
Thanks, Linda.
Just I've been listening, so taking some notes. Just a couple of points. First of all, the last degree I did I did mostly through block release Saturdays, and unis never had their canteens open on Saturdays, okay? But students were still happy to come. They would bring their own lunches and food, and we were allowed to use teachers' microwaves to actually warm food, because we would be there for the whole day. So students don't mind so long there is an option for them to do something about it. Number two, I've worked around a lot. I've worked in the faculty, I've worked as a college manager, and it gives me a very good understanding of how things operate. And I can tell you there's millions and millions of positive stories around of collaboration between the colleges and the faculties. Even from when I relieved for a short duration as the college manager, I remember that I couldn't let the class happen at Miller because there was only one class and it wasn't financially viable to run it. It wasn't a commercial program. It wasn't financially viable to open the college on Saturday. I contacted Richard, and Richard said, yes, he's got classes running. We moved the class there. The faculty was happy, the section was happy, students were happy, and it was done. So there are many, many beautiful stories. And the last series or session we did with Peter and the staff last year, end of last year, one of the best things about those sessions was that people were actually telling positive stories of how they are embracing change. So there's a lot of positive out there, and I was surprised. They were standing up in the room and they were telling how they are embracing the smart and skill, how they are managing change, what sort of changes they have already started making in their sections, what's happening, and how they are actually researching how other RTOs are managing as well. So that was really nice to actually see. And then it actually, from where I sit and where we actually have to listen to all the complaints, whether they are from staff or student, then you see a letter from a student to say, my teacher told me TAFE is shutting down, and that's why I'm not going to have my class, okay? And then you think, oh, really, it's everybody's responsibility, because we can't blame the institute didn't do anything, because what makes the institute? We all make this institute. So we all have to take the responsibility. Or then when you see an email from a staff member saying the institute has done nothing, and then you see at the same time the email has gone out from workforce capability with list of all these workshops on due diligence, having difficult conversations, resume writing, work health and safety, and there are millions of opportunities that every time a staff puts up their hand, they want to do something, it's considered a complaint that comes in, it's actioned upon, a suggestion that comes in, it's actioned upon. But sometimes some things, they take time, they can't be just done with a magic wand, and there's a lot of work that goes behind the scene. So yes, I agree with what Brian has done. We need to continue with that community of practice. I agree, because as the college manager, if I were in Brian's place, I would have reflected on that, and I would have said, yes, people, they actually align more with the college community than the faculty. Don't forget that I also came from the faculty. So, but I know that people align more to the college community, and yes, I would love to do the same or similar. But from what I learned from that session we had with a selected group of staff, what I learned was that people were constantly, once Peter asked them to start giving how people are feeling, distressed or in denial or fear, what I learned was that there was a lot of negative coming, but once I started reminding people, and Shane was there, Valerie was there, what about all this that we are doing? Suddenly you could see the room being divided into two groups, and people were saying, yes, you're right, Rabia is right, yes, Institute is doing something, we just got to also give them solutions. We just can't keep on complaining, we've got to give them solutions as well, because we are only like 4 people in the IDU leadership and then the board of directors, but we need more and more suggestions to come forward on how we can work together to solve this problem of stress, fear, denial, and other things that we all want to do.
Thank you. Ravi, Anthony just pointed out on our student association message, making campus life better. And I suppose, can I just wrap up now, because we're just past time, but I just want to kind of bring some themes together today about what we should consider and agree on. Ravi just made a good point about where the teachers identify, in their college or in their faculty, and often it's in the college community, that they identify, and the faculty, is important and they get pulled together, and that's where the discipline is. But communities are people working together in their every day, and their teachers and the support staff and the people they care for. And I think that probably, we need to perhaps underestimated the power of the college to influence the change process. And I think, and now on the table of then going through change. So I think the college people, whether you're in a faculty or in a business unit or in a college unit, you're in a location that needs to consider how that location deals with change, and it's not isolated from the institute. So that's what Rabia is talking about. John mentioned to me about the community that we have. We've got a lot of communities, and they're all based around campuses, and those campuses are going under a significant amount of stress at the moment, whether they're in individual faculties winding down and we're shifting stuff out, and that breaks down the college community, or we're building stuff up in another one, and there's winners and losers, and I think what I'd like to see and get some reflect on when we get out of here, and we'll try and write up some actions for us to commit to. But I think it does come down a lot about the individual's leadership role, about turning a negative into a positive, turning a problem into a solution, turning from a leadership, we can have the win session, but if everyone just has cathartic release, that's one thing. They go back to the negative in a couple of days' time, and unless you do something to, what's that? Grandfather figure, yeah. So I think we're all about that, but one of the things that I think Deborah raised, which I really picked up on, is this joint, college, unit, faculty, on the initiatives, getting support services, getting together really collaboratively about solutions and de-stressing some of this blame stuff that's going on, and then opening up our minds to the influences of some clever people. And sometimes we get bogged down, in my view, and I do myself, get bogged down at all the busy stuff, but the really important stuff sometimes just doesn't get in that collaborative time. We haven't got time to meeting to get together, we haven't got time to talk, we haven't got time to listen. Wouldn't it be good to have our stakeholders in that conversation, our students and our customers, about what they want, not what we think they want? And if it comes down to Campus Life Better and collaborative learning, about student-centred learning, about problem-based learning, the teachers have to be confronted with that as well, because some of them get it and a lot don't, unfortunately. Do we all agree with that? I think there's a few.
We've got qualified educators. Universities are often lecturers.
That's right. That's right. So what I think we can do is position ourselves for the future. But I'd like to really probably challenge everyone in the room that we are a community, that we have our different views about how it impacts on us and the people that we care for. And if you're in a particular area that's getting downsized, it's really tough to say, like, I'm a victim of this at the same time as I'm trying to lead the change. Well, I accept that. But if that's where you need to get some, support, when you're in that situation, it's very difficult to say, I'm actually getting, the punt at the same time I'm asked to lead the change. And that takes some, sometimes you need a lot of support to do that, and we're up for that. And that's where the support comes in. Then we can target it, and that means about sharing those concerns with your line manager and or your network, and being positive about that. As Linda would say, it's all about sharing about that fear and that change management process, and the communications and things like that. So if I've got some endorsement of that across the room, that we just go away and reflect on that. We all own the success of SWSi, we're all committed to it, that we have to work collaboratively as teams. Perhaps we needed to focus more in our change management of de-siloing things. We have to break down some of the entrenched bureaucracy that we have in the place. It really is endemic. It's really endemic, and a lot of people are doing it because they're protecting their jobs on all sides, teachers, support, managers. Unless we break this, we could we could have all the flexible learning design in the world, but if someone can't get enrolled, we're in deep trouble. And unless we can save some money by shutting down inefficient services, we're in deep trouble. So we have to work on that. So look, thank you everyone. I've got a lot out of today just from a learning experience. Tanya, you have the last word as usual.
Remember, Campbelltown's got their auction on. It's a way of making money.
Auction? What are you auctioning?
Everything.
What, the whole college?
Whatever you want, just come and
Please forward it out to your friends, networks, because Robert Van Dien would like a lot of
all the junk's going. All right, we